Good evening. It's time to call to order
We
the
have a new
regular.
caller on the line. Can you
Hi,
please wait,
Zach Richard. Zach
Thank you.
Richard.
Good evening. It's time to call to order the regular meeting of the McAllister City Council, Tuesday, October 13th. We do have a quorum, and we have Mr. Primus Moore here to lead us in invocation and pledge.
Would you bow with me, please? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost, amen. Your blessed Father, you have given some to serve us in public realms, ordaining men and women for the sake of good and the peace that presides in your stead. Grant them your blessings, Lord, along with the wisdom and strength to govern us well. Through their service, grant us and our country your ongoing favor, even as you lead us as we serve you, especially the most vulnerable ones among us, dear Lord. We ask these and many other prayers in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Boatright,
Here.
Pritchard,
Here.
Mayor.
Here. We're on to citizens' comments on non-agenda items. Residents may address the council regarding an item that is not listed on the agenda. Residents must provide their name and address, and council requests that comments be limited to 5 minutes. We do have Ms. Jean Sipes. Saw her just a minute. There you go. You're up. Just come to the podium and pull the mic to you. Excuse me? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. If you would, pull the mic to you. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, my hearing is like not what it used to be. My name is Jean Sipes. I'm kind of the new kid here, and I have been involved in community activities, community activism, that kind of thing. I try to speak for the people. So when I started seeing all these posts about a year and a half ago on various social media platforms, oh, the city this, the city that, and the county blah, 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 blah. I felt the need to basically try to put it all on one platform or make it available to where all this can be discussed together in one place instead of 20. Seemed logical. So there's a lot of citizens here that have lived here a lot longer than I have, but they have a lot of concerns. And it's not just one person, it's a lot of people. And it's not any kind of a driven by one individual type situation. It's just a lot of people that have a lot of questions for council members, city managers, you know, and I'm trying to get a platform together. I've gotten it together basically. It's on Facebook. And don't let the name scare you. I'm not trying to be at war with the city. I just thought it was an appropriate name. It's called McAllister Citizens for Political Accountability. So it seems to be a fitting name because that's what everybody's saying. I mean, there's a lot of people that still haven't joined the group, but are out there, what's going on, asking questions. So I want to try to make it as a communication between the city members and the public. If you will take part in it, that would be great, because there's a lot of people that have worries and concerns, and I've done some research. And it's not just the city, there's the county, there's the courts, there's even the Board of Education, people that have done some stuff. You know, and even if it's years ago, people in a smaller town like this don't get over it so quick. They keep that in their brain. They're like, well, how can I trust anybody now? Is basically what I'm hearing. So once again, it is called McAllister Citizens for Political Accountability Coalition. So if you would like to join that, I'm the only admin right now. I'm responsible to try to keep everything focused. I don't allow any bashing, stuff like that. And that's just a place for people to ask questions. And if you guys would join, that would be very helpful. So a lot of people have a lot of questions and a lot of issues they want to address. They just want answers. For most of it, you know, I try to keep, like I said, the people that are just whatever, you know, the rumor mill, whatever you want to call it, negative stuff, people that just want to bash and attack each other, I don't allow it. I'm not gonna. So it is what it is. I mean, it seems to be a great need for just answers. That's all. I mean, Mr. Brown has been kind enough to answer a lot of questions I have, because I'm new here. I don't necessarily know what all the codes are. I don't know what the plans are. You know, a lot of things. And he's been really very, very helpful. Thank you. But it seems like as a council, I would hope it's a team effort. I mean, I thought that's kind of how it worked, if I'm mistaken, you know. And it's just like, I have ancestors that helped start this country, a very big believer in we the people. And that's basically what I'm trying to do, is represent we the people. But thank you for hearing me out. And if you'd like to join so you can hear the concerns and questions, just look it up. It's on Facebook. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. That is the only sign up I had, but there's a few people that have arrived since then, so I'll give you guys an opportunity if anybody out in the lobby is wanting to speak. All right. In that case, we'll move to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the city council and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items. If discussion is desired, that item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered separately. The agenda tonight consists of approval of minutes from the September 22nd, 2020 regular meeting of the McAllister City Council. B, approval of claims for September 16, 2020 through October 6, 2020. C, accept and place on file the 2020 annual report for McAllister Defense Support Services. D, consider and act upon ratification of change order number 1 from WWJB Construction in the amount of $631. This is for additional surge rock to be added to the south end of the project to mitigate any, the south end of the project to mitigate any future erosion. This is for the 102 Saunier Way Canal Bank Stabilization Project. The change order also adds 30 days to the substantial completion date. E, concur with the mayor's reappointment of Dolores Smith to the McAllister Library Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2024. F, concur with the mayor's reappointment of Steve Harrison to the McAllister Library Advisory Board for a term to expire December 31st, 2025. G, approve and authorize the mayor to sign a resolution directing the filing and notification of the publication of supplement number 2 to the McAllister City Code of 2017. H, consider and act upon indefinitely postponing tort claim filed by Camp Hope Kids Ranch Incorporated. I, consider and act upon a shared use agreement with McAllister Public Schools for Will Rogers Park. Would anyone like anything removed?
Can we get somebody to mute their phone? Is that what that is?
No, it's different pigeons back there.
The pigeons are cooing
Yes.
in our meeting?
Yes.
Sorry. No, I don't want anything removed.
I like to think they're cheering us on. Anyone? In that case, I take a motion and a second to approve. Motion, Councilman Cox, second, Councilman Smith. Any further discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes?
Stevens,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Now under public hearing, all persons interested in any ordinance listed under scheduled business shall have an opportunity to be heard in accordance with Article 2, Section 212B of the city charter. The hearing tonight is an ordinance of the City of McAllister, Oklahoma, amending Chapter 22 businesses of the McAllister City Code, Article 9, medical marijuana, repealing all conflicting ordinances and providing for severability. I need a motion and a second to open public hearing. Motion Vice Mayor Brown, second Councilman Boatright. Any discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Vice Mayor Brown,
Yes.
Councilman Boatright,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes?
Mayor.
Yes, and we're now in a public hearing. Anyone wishing to address us on this ordinance, come forward. Seeing no one, I'd take a motion and second to close. Motion Councilman Smith, second Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Corr, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and motion carries. We're now on to agenda item number 1, presentation and discussion of the 2020 Economic Development Annual Report. Mr. Ridenhour.
Evening, Mayor and Council. In your package, you have the McAllister Economic Update for FY 1920. The document is long enough that you don't want us to go through this page by page, reviewing everything. Instead, I think a better use might be if we talk about our industrial development processes at the city. Obviously, you can stop me at any time if you have a question about the report or the
Just one thing I want
presentation.
to let everyone know, people that are watching, is that it is available online. Go to citymcallister.com, the agendas, it's part of the agenda package.
So McAllister is actively engaged in attracting and recruiting industries. It's a part of our program. It is a multifaceted program that involves several approaches. I'd like to visit about a few of those approaches now. First and foremost, and this is typical for most economic development groups, our primary interaction with industry is through requests for proposals that we receive from typically Department of Commerce, but various regional economic development groups. So an RFP, a request for proposal, occurs when a company is wanting to expand or relocate. They've already made that determination that something they want to do. Most frequently, that company will seek a professional site consultant or site consultant firm to do the searching for them. It's not something that is their expertise, so they find people whose expertise it is to do it. These site selectors will reach out to, like I said, regional economic development groups, whether it be the Oklahoma Department of Commerce. Sometimes we get them through the Choctaw Nation. Sometimes we get them through PSO. They can arrive from various organizations, but they all kind of have the same theme. Once they've reached out and connected with these different groups, they put together the RFP, and essentially for our purposes, that RFP is a checklist of requirements for the project. What does the project need to be successful? Sometimes the project requirements are short, a page long. Sometimes those requirements are 20 to 30 pages long, depending on how detailed the RFP is. Some general things that we expect out of an RFP is your product. What are you trying to sell? Do you have sites and buildings? Depending on what their needs are, we might see something about infrastructure access. Do we have access to highways and rail? Utility capacity. Not only do we have utilities, but what is the excess capacity of those utilities? Typically, we see something on workforce. They require this many jobs of these types of skill sets. Often, we have a box that talks about what our local incentives are. What are we willing to provide? So the job of the community when we receive that RFP is to take that checklist, create a packet that addresses those things, that shows that we can meet the needs of the project. The game is similar but very different than when it was 20 years ago, when all you needed to do to recruit an industry was wine and dine them long enough. This is a data-driven and information-driven process that you either qualify for the project or you don't. So once we send back the RFP, typically through Commerce, they'll get it back to the site selector. That firm will sort through the RFPs and find, and the process isn't let's identify the single best site. Instead, the process is let's eliminate communities because they don't meet requirements. So if you're not hitting check boxes, if you can't meet the building requirement size, if you can't meet the utility capacity, you're being eliminated. This process will continue until there's 3 to 5 communities left. At that point, the site selector brings the company in and does site visits. They'll actually tour all these communities. and see for themselves what's available. That's typically, you hear a lot of people say, you know, we have great quality of life in McAllister, and that should be a huge attraction to industries. If you can't make it to the site visit for the company, the quality of life doesn't factor into it. That's not a checklist, a checkbox on the list. Only once you're competitive enough to get to those final communities will those things matter. But once the community, or once the company has seen all the communities, they will make the final determination on which community best meets their needs. To give you an idea of how many we're looking at, we see in a given month, we can see one to two RFPs as average, but sometimes we don't get any. Sometimes we can get three or four. It varies. We've had periods, 6-month periods of times where we didn't receive a single RFP, and that wasn't unique to McAllister. The state just wasn't seeing a lot of leads come to the state. Since 2015, we've responded to more than 50 RFPs or equivalent requests. Not all of them will be called an RFP, but they're essentially the same thing. That's our primary method of connecting with industries, and it's useful because these industries are ones that are expanding. We're not trying to convince these companies to expand. They're already in that mindset. Another element to this program is because site selectors are so important to this process, we want to have good relationships with site selectors. We're a part of a group, Oklahoma Southeast. It's a group of communities in Southeast Oklahoma, obviously, who host annual events every year that try to encourage site selectors to come tour us, come visit our communities and meet us. Typically, they're built with a attraction in mind, whether that be a golfing tournament or a fishing tournament or a hunting expedition of some kind, to try to get these site selectors in. They come from all over the nation. We do get a lot from the Dallas area, but that's still not a bad thing, because site selectors, when companies look for site selectors, it's not location driven. They'll pick one anywhere in the country. This gives us an opportunity to develop closer relationships with these site selectors. That gives us, if they remember us whenever they have a project and they know what we have, we might get an RFP directly from them, whereas maybe the state didn't. So it's good to have relationships with these key drivers of industrial development. Of course, we're not just waiting on industries to come to us. We are trying to go find our own industrial leads as well. Now, there's several ways to do that. The most common, I don't even want to say the most common, but the thought that typically comes to mind for most people is cold calling. Just getting on the phone, calling an industry, saying, hey, here's who I am, do you want to come to McAllister? Not an overly effective way to do economic development, and just in terms of what's the best use of your time. A lot of businesses that you call may not be in the mindset of expanding, or you may not reach the right person that's going to be a decision maker. Instead, we want to focus our efforts where we can get the most bang for our buck, and there's a few ways to do that. The first is trade shows, large events where like-minded businesses come together, typically to show off product, but there's also a lot of business development that occurs at these trade shows as well. This is a great place to meet a lot of businesses. Maybe they're not all interested in expanding, but at least they've got their business development caps on. They're thinking in those terms. Great time to talk to them. We do want to, not only do we want to attend trade shows, we want to focus our efforts on these trade shows as well. We want to attend those trade shows that are most relevant to us, things where the companies can resonate with Southeast Oklahoma. For instance, the two of the more successful shows that we've been to was AUSA, the Association of the United States Army. They have an annual event in DC where all the major defense contractors and all the related supply chain of those defense contractors show up in one location to talk about their products and talk about development. We've made a lot of great contacts going to that. Another one is the SHOT Show, the Shooting, Hunting, and Outdoor Trade Show. A lot of weapon manufacturers, bullet manufacturers go to these shows, and it gives us a chance to get in front of people who may not be aware of McAllister or even Oklahoma, what we offer. Another element of the program is call trips, where we go to a specific area and meet with, not in a formalized event, but just going and meeting with them at their businesses, going and meeting with several companies, and introducing them and familiarizing them with Oklahoma or McAllister. These shows or these call trips, we typically almost exclusively have participated with the state in those through the governor's economic development marketing team. We use that relationship because the Department of Commerce and the governor can open doors that McAllister might not be able to on our own. Often we like to go to states that are stereotypically anti-business, just to let them know that there are states out there that would welcome their presence. Additionally, when we are traveling for other special events that aren't industrial focused, for instance, the McAllister Stampede, we try to schedule visits with industries that we are wanting to recruit. We try to dual purpose a lot of our events. Going to the McAllister Stampede, we have a great opportunity to talk to defense contractors, to talk to drone companies, things that are in that area that we would love to see come to McAllister. So we do try to make sure that we maximize our efforts when we do things. Obviously, through trade shows and call trips and things like that, you're meeting hundreds and hundreds of clients. Not all of them are interested. Since 2015, we have found more than 40 businesses that are interested, that were interested in McAllister when we spoke to them, and we've had further correspondence with them. Sometimes that correspondence dies quickly. Sometimes it ends up in a site visit. We've had site visits that have resulted because of these shows that we attend. So these are having impacts. Lastly, since we do have limited staff here at the city that are focused on this, we try to expand our capacity with partnerships with other organizations. For instance, with the McAllister Chamber of Commerce, their ambassador program, we work with them to go out and visit local industries and assess what their needs are and make sure that we're helping with growth. It's something that we're doing on our own anyway, but it's nice to use the Chamber of Commerce to be able to reach more businesses. The Oklahoma Small Business Development Center, not only do we help finance one of their representatives, we work closely with them with clients that we identify or they identify that need assistance. If they need technical assistance, we'll send it to Oklahoma Small Business. If they need incentive assistance, they'll come to us.
Just a quick plug for them
Sure.
too, is they don't charge any fees for their services.
Correct. What we pay to hire that person, that is the only expense at that point. For the businesses, it is a free service. And for anyone that is a small business or an entrepreneur, I definitely encourage you to get on the Oklahoma Small Business Development Center's website and register to be one of their clients, because their services are incredibly valuable. We also partner with the McAllister Defense Support Association, with specifically the McAllister Defense Support Services. With MACAP being our largest industry, we take a particular focus in trying to protect and grow it. It is the industry that has the best chance for rapid employment growth, so we want to make sure that we advocate and protect it the best that we can. So all that's nice. Where's the disconnect? We're doing things. Why aren't we seeing a lot of industrial activity? Well, and I touched on it briefly, but there are some challenges that we face that typically keep us from being able to check off the list on the RFPs. I want to go through some of the bigger ones that I've encountered, but it's not an exhaustive list. First and foremost is our lack of existing industrial sites and buildings, or at least quality ones that a industry that's looking this way would be interested in. So, talking on buildings, we have not had an overabundance of large industrial buildings since I've been here. The recent announcements of closures will obviously change that. We'll be gaining some buildings to market, which puts us in a unique competitive advantage, actually. But since this point, there hasn't been a lot of product to sell. Similarly with sites, we do have an industrial park, but it's not overly developed. There are some terrain issues that need to be flattened out. It's not cleared. It's not shovel ready. If you're an industry that comes in and looks at our site, you see risk. You see time delays. You see costs for getting the site ready. We don't really have a product to sell. The second big problem that we encounter is not really our own fault. it's actually some federal incentive programs that are out there. Like us, the federal government does offer incentives to try to encourage business development, and they're great programs. We've had businesses that have taken advantage of them. The two biggest ones that are being used right now, at least for Southeast Oklahoma, is the New Market Tax Credit, where if you're investing in a certain census tract that is deemed and that is designated as kind of in need of some assistance, you could qualify for up to 39% federal tax credit based upon your investment, which can be huge. It can be huge for industries. Same with opportunity zones. If you're investing in an opportunity zone, you have certain tax benefits, capital gains tax benefits that you might be eligible for. They were designed to help the communities do economic development. In our case, our industrial park does not sit in these census tracts. If we're trying to pitch those sites, we don't have access to those incentives. Now, other parts of McAllister do, but there isn't, that's not where our industrial capacity is. That's not where maybe it's not on a highway, maybe doesn't have a water line running to it. What is supposed to be an incentive sometimes becomes a barrier for us. But that's just the way that it is. I will say with the closures, 2 of the facilities that are closing will be in a New Market Tax Credit census tract. So there is that advantage again. The third piece that does come up from time to time is the fact that we don't have a formalized local incentive program. When we're responding to an RFP, one of the check boxes is, what are you going to provide? Now, we can propose what we think would be a reasonable incentive for these companies. But because we don't have a formalized one that's been approved by the council, we also have to include caveats in every RFP that we submit. We think that you should ask for this, but the council has to approve it. Subject to council approval is in almost every one of our RFPs, which in itself isn't a terrible thing, but that is risk. When we say that, the company has to think to themselves, or the site selector does, am I actually going to get this incentive? If we had a formalized process, then it's not that it would bypass the council's need for approval. That would still have to occur, but we're one step closer in being able to say this has been approved by the city council. The McAllister Lead Committee is working on a formalized incentive program right now, so that way that should address that issue in time. Finally, and this doesn't come up a lot, but it has come up on several projects, limited utility capacity. Some of our utilities, we have all utilities out at the industrial park. We have water, sewer, electric, natural gas. We can accommodate most projects. And in some cases, especially with water, we have a lot of excess capacity, and that has been a major recruitment point for some industries that we've spoken with. Unfortunately, even though our water capacity, our excess water capacity is high, our wastewater capacity doesn't quite match up to it. It doesn't quite rise to that same excess capacity level. In some cases, no excess capacity. We are working to address that. We've made some improvements at our wastewater plant, but it's one thing to be able to sell someone water, but it's another thing if we can't take it back. So that is an issue that we have run into. Additionally, with natural gas, we do have natural gas lines at the industrial park that accommodates most growth that we see, but we have had projects where everything looked like it fit, except the capacity wasn't quite there for natural gas. And getting a larger line to the industrial park is a costly endeavor. So those are not an exhaustive list of challenges that we face. I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what happens when we receive an RFP, and we still respond to it. I mean, if they say they need a building that's 150,000 square feet, well, we'll propose a build-to-suit. I mean, we can show you that we've got land, but as they're eliminating communities, if there is a community that has that building, if there is a community that has that workforce, we are likely to be ranked below them. We're likely to be eliminated before they are. So it's not a simple process. It's not an easy process. I know the theory of industrial development is pretty simple. You know, we want manufacturing jobs. We want a qualified workforce. Those are very simple things to want. The application of actually getting there is sometimes more difficult. And even though we're working on them, it takes time. Of course, compounding all of these challenges is that we don't have a dedicated revenue stream for economic development. if we had money coming in, some of these challenges that we're facing could be addressed. And particularly with incentives, if we want to get really aggressive in trying to recruit in industries, it's going to be difficult if we don't have more money coming in to replenish the fund. So those are some of the challenges we're facing, as well as some of the efforts that we do at the city level in industrial development. I'm happy to entertain questions about the report or my presentation.
Vice Mayor Brown?
Thank you, Mayor. Kirk, you may or may not know the economic budget balance. That's probably one for either Tony. In other words, how much money do we have in here where you can go do some of these things?
Last time we spoke about it, Pete, and that was several months ago, it was 700,000 that we had for general funds. We do have more for grants, but those are normally dedicated. For instance, we have several grants that are dedicated to supporting MACAP, and we can't use for addressing some of these deficiencies.
So some of the, and we have several businesses, you know, that are closing. Is that a corporate, I'm going to pull this away, is that a corporate decision, or is that something that we have any kind of control of? And
So-
I ask that because I know
Sure.
the answer, but some people have asked me that.
Well, that would vary. In the case of the two that you're referring to, National Oil Well and Spirit, those were largely out of local controls. Obviously, there are cases when businesses close that maybe the local community could help, but for those two, and a lot of the closures we've seen recently, there are macroeconomic trends occurring that are really they kind of have us behind the curve. So for Spirit in particular. For those who are not familiar, our local facility, depending on who you speak to, 80 to 90% of our workload was Boeing 737 MAX, which had some crashes a couple of years ago and was grounded. And while they were awaiting the recertification process, they waited for a while, thinking that this would get recertified quickly, they could get back to production. While they were waiting, COVID hit, and further damaged the aviation industry. At this point, it does, even if the 737 MAX was recertified tomorrow, it's unlikely that production would return quickly or at the levels it was before. So at some point, corporate had to make the decision, we're cutting back. And which facility are they going to cut back? Typically the small ones. And that's us. Now for National Oil Well, in a similar situation where but even before COVID, the energy industry collapsed. The end of last year, they really took a beating, mostly because, at least for natural gas, the price hasn't changed much yet, but what we're seeing is that there might have been some overproduction. For the first time since the 1960s, we are producing more natural gas domestically than we're consuming. At some point, economics are going to drive the decision. First, they're going to drive the price down, and it's going to drive the decision to slow production, which it has. And that's what we saw here. We were looking at, we were looking at an average of maybe 20 rigs, an active 20 rigs a month in the Arkoma Basin where we're located. Right now, we're operating maybe one, some months none. Drilling has collapsed in this area, which obviously National Oil Well, that didn't affect them directly because they're nationwide. But eventually, that was happening nationwide, and eventually that lack of demand for drilling equipment impacted National Oil Well to the point where they had to consolidate their operations and move it back to Houston. There's very little we can do to impact the price of oil or gas. There's very little we can do to keep the 737 in the air. So for those two specific industries, we certainly have tried to help them, but it's not an easy environment to be helping them in.
Thank you, Mr. Director.
Any other questions or comments? Councilman Smith?
Have you developed a list, a prioritized list of what things we need to do, the most important things we need to do to improve our chances and their costs?
Roughly, but not their costs. So I could give you a list, here's the top 10 things that I think would be the most impactful improvements to make, but not all of them have costs associated with them yet, no.
What about our workforce? Does that hurt or help us?
So that has not been one. Workforce is difficult because we've never not been able to say that we can meet a company needs 500 people, they need 200 people. Well, our labor shed's quite extensive, and we normally have enough unemployed people to say we can meet the need. Now, obviously, when they're reviewing RFPs, if we have 1,000 unemployed persons and someone else has 10,000 unemployed persons, we technically checked the checkbox, but they're more competitive than we are. The company has a better chance of getting the people they need if there is a larger population base.
What's your idea for that steady stream of income for economic development?
The sales tax.
We knocked that down, didn't we? Didn't they turn that down?
They did.
a
They
year
did.
or so ago?
They did.
So what's the next step to get that stream of income?
Well, we could try it again. I think one approach that might generate a little more excitement with the community is if we had a specific goal in mind. It was pretty general. For instance, Lawton recently passed a sales tax initiative strictly for industrial development, and they had a master plan on what they wanted to do. It was a $49 million bond. It was pretty big. If we had that approach where the citizens could see exactly what they were voting on instead of just a general economic development fund, that might increase the chances. There are other creative ways. Most communities use sales taxes, but there are some other creative ways that we could get the resources that we need. I like Muskoge's approach, where they actually dedicate the first $1 million of their use taxes towards economic development. Not to say that we would do $1 million, but there could be the possibility for that. Obviously, if we got in a position where we owned industrial buildings, we're not there, but if we owned them and leased them out, the money that we made off the lease rates could potentially fund not a fully functional economic development program, but it would at least help with revenue coming in over time. So I think a sales tax is probably you get your biggest bang for your buck, but there are some other things we could consider as well.
So are you gonna put together a proposal for these items?
I certainly can, if that's something the council would like to
Do
see.
you want to? Is that reasonable that we do that?
This was
Get
the
off the
first step
extender?
in bringing you up to speed on what our approach has been and what some of the obstacles are. The next approach will be bringing that package to the city council. Start having those discussions.
Thanks.
Just so it's public knowledge, how many employees are there in our economic development group?
I don't know I'm sorry, the economic development group.
Yeah, our economic development team, it's you by
The-
yourself.
Oh,
correct?
yes.
Yeah.
It is me, and Pete certainly helps with a lot of the back end stuff. But when it comes to going out and meeting businesses and going places, you're looking at it.
Yeah,
There's a lot of activity to stretch one person across.
yeah, definitely. Any other questions or comments?
Mayor, and he probably won't know this, but when I was on here before, we had what we call meds. And they had several members. Now, I don't know who did, I think they had an economic development director
They
then,
did.
but I don't know how I'm trying to remember how that was formed, where they would go out and maybe try to get some extra help. I mean, something like that. Would that help you or would it not if you had people?
So we have two organizations or two entities right now that I think will. One is our lead committee that we've established at the city level that will help with city policies and programs. The other is our partnership. It's really grown since this year, but our partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, where we're getting a group of community members together who are taking this in their own hands and going out and meeting businesses and making sure that we can touch as many people as possible, at least.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Back when we had meds, we also had the McAllister Investment Group.
Yes.
And then also there was another group, I think it was called I want to say the Firm or something like that.
I'm not familiar with that
It
one.
was made up, it was basically venture capitalists
So-
for the city, and we don't have that now.
Well, we're trying to form that as well. We have gotten, we're forming it because we have had projects where a venture capitalist might have helped it get over the finish line. And a lot of the players that were doing it, they're not necessarily in the risk mindset right now, and they're not interested in those types of endeavors. We are trying to form another group that could potentially do that. It wouldn't be applicable for every project that we work on, but having a group of investors that could tackle smaller projects or larger ones if there's enough of them would absolutely be helpful for us.
Yeah, gives you another tool.
Gives us another tool.
All right, any other questions or comments? Thank you, Mr. Reiner.
Thanks.
We're on to agenda item number 2, discussion on an amendment to an ordinance of the City of McAllister to clarify the rules and regulations of licensing marijuana facilities with the city. Mr. Stasiak.
Mayor, members of the council, tonight we bring forth to you a first reading of an amendment to our marijuana ordinance. This is based on guidance from the state, new direction coming down from the state. We have made numerous changes throughout this ordinance. Probably the first one that we want to talk about is applicants who have received the city license have 30 days to submit for their state license. Prior to that, it was just backwards. So there's new guidance on how the permitting goes. Some of the other things that we're discussing in here is each year the facility that is in operation has to pay the fee for that facility. It talks about secure access and maintaining secure access for these facilities. They deal in a lot of cash and how they have to protect those properties and what they're trying to sell at those properties. Also talks about inspections of the police chief and those type of things on an annual basis. Talks about medical marijuana dispensaries, and they can't be located within 1,000 feet of the entryway of any public or private school as defined. Says the same thing about commercial medical marijuana growing facilities. They can't be located within 1,000 feet of public or private school as defined. And also commercial medical marijuana processing facilities cannot be located within 1,000 feet. So what we've done is we've brought this to you tonight. I know the attorney who helped draft this along with our paralegal is on the line. We wanted to bring this to you. As we've discussed in the past, this is not for approval this evening. What we'd like to do is have a discussion if there is any comments, or if you have an opportunity over the next week or so and you want to propose any changes to this, please let us know, and we'll be bringing this back at a later date for council approval.
Just one thing for quick clarification. You said of the entryway, and it's of any entryway.
Of any entryway, thank you.
Yeah. Councilman Smith?
How do you measure that 1,000 feet? Is that, not as the crow flies, but down the streets?
I think it would be as the crow flies, the straightest path you could get to that 1,000 feet. So,
Okay.
They typically measure it as a crow flies. They just do like a radius, from the point. Thanks.
thanks, Jamie.
Any other questions, comments? Councilman Cox?
City manager, we've had quite a few discussions over the ventilation. For some reason, I seem to be getting a lot of complaints from residents of Ward 3 about the smells.
Yes.
Is there any way to look at how other cities are handling the ventilation requirements and adopt that into the ordinance as we go forward?
We can certainly look at that, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Any other questions or comments?
How many, Mayor, I was gonna ask the city manager, how many facilities do we have in town? Maybe Jamie knows.
I think it changes daily.
Oh, does it?
It's
Do you have a
double
number?
digits, I can tell you that.
There's a large number, and you see a lot of them come and a lot of them go.
Okay.
So there's quite a number of them. I think the last I heard there were 7 grow facilities. Now I don't know how many dispensaries there are.
Okay.
Councilman
Are
Boatright?
we charging anything? Do we get a fee for a license? Or do we have a tax that we put onto marijuana like they put on cigarettes? Is there anything?
There is a tax, yes, sir, Councilman, there is a tax that is collected, and it shows up on our monthly sales tax reports. I can't disclose that to you, but it's between all the dispensaries, it's a nice figure.
Okay, I just wondered if we were,
And we do charge a license fee.
okay. I knew that we were getting the license, but I wasn't sure if we had any kind of fee on the sale of it.
There is, yes, sir.
Okay.
Anyone else? We will move on to agenda item number 3. Consider and act upon a resolution authorizing the addition of one full-time position to the Recreation Department and placing them on the non-uniform pay plan for fiscal year 2020-2021. Ms. Swift.
Good evening, council.
Good evening.
This agenda is to consider and act upon this position in the recreation, which will be funded by the general fund and tourism department. I've attached the job description in your packet, and then I would, if you'd like, I can highlight a little bit about the person or the lead coordinator that we are looking at hiring in this position.
One thing about this position is it will actually create some revenue as well, won't it?
That is correct. We look at, we're planning on playing as the season permits and weather, obviously, 4 days a week when spring and summer come along, and fall, at the softball complex that we have today, and also on the weekends, which brings in several hundreds of people, to play on a weekend. Of course, probably at night, it's probably going to be a little bit more local, teams that will be playing. The person that we have looked at, they worked for us for a number of years as a league coordinator, tournament director, and has countless contacts as far as coaches, players, school leaders, umpires. As far as his resume, as far as we can definitely give that all that information to you. But we do anticipate the season coming up. We didn't really have anything due to COVID this year, so a lot of teams and a lot of organizations have missed out on that, and we've missed out on the revenue that would potentially be here. So we really anticipate this really growing.
Any questions or comments? Councilman Cox?
City manager, are we fully staffed at the PD and the fire department?
We are not. We are currently going through that process. We have 2 open positions, and that'll be part of my report tonight. 2 open positions in the fire department. We currently have 3 open positions in our police department and 1 in our CID department, which is down from the 6 that we were at. So we're slowly replenishing those groups.
But no issue with payroll right now, filling those positions in the near future?
Some of those positions are not funded yet. So there's a thought process that we'll be sharing with you in the near future. There's funding that's coming in on a month-to-month basis as we fill all positions throughout the entire city and replenish the benefits that people have lost. Councilman, we look at, I probably ought to go over here. Councilman, we're looking at this position as driving income for the city. One of the things that we've learned over the last 8 months with this COVID pandemic is that people are really focusing on outdoor activities. We're seeing a huge interest in outdoor activities. We have another group of people that's looking at bike trails here in the city, which is going to draw people to our community. So we want to focus on that. We want to drive people, give them the opportunity for recreation in our community, events that are held in our community, and with hopes that people will stay in our hotels over the weekends, they'll eat in our restaurants, they'll buy gas, they'll go to the new shopping center, and just drive activity. So we're really going to be focusing the next 9 months during this fiscal year on how we increase that tourism mechanism for our community.
Do you have a projection of what the revenue potential is by adding this position?
I've got an idea. I'm not ready to share that with you, but I've been informed of several large tournaments. We're in contact with the tournament director over in Stigler, which is a small community. They're almost booked solid over there. There is a huge drive for these activities, and we're going to be ready for it in the spring.
Councilman Boatright?
As part of this in the past, this softball and baseball or whatever, boys and girls that come out, this year I followed my grandson all over this part of the state to these tournaments, and they were packed. They were at full capacity, and they brought in a lot of money for the towns. And I'm talking about Stigler, I'm talking about Atoka, I'm talking about Muskogee, I'm talking about all these people that are drawing in a lot of people to these tournaments. All the parents and grandparents are all following these kids to these tournaments, and they spend money when they go there. So I'm very much in support of this.
Any other, any other questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, go ahead,
I didn't get who that was, but go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'll respond after Councilman Pritchard.
Okay. Go ahead, Councilman Pritchard.
I may have missed this in the packet, but how much does this position pay?
Current. You got it or you
I got it.
You got it?
We're currently looking at our pay scale, which is the 116 pay scale, which ranges from $14 to $22 an hour is the range in which we're looking at.
What we're looking at is we are focused on the $16 an hour rate for this
Yes.
position, which equates to about $33,000 a year.
Correct.
Would this person get benefits as well?
Yes.
So what do we think our total compensation cost would be, benefits included for this position?
You're in the low 40,000.
Okay. And so I see this is a full-time position. I mean, how many hours a week does this person work, or would this person work?
If we Councilman, if we have tournaments on the weekends, then we would rotate his days, probably being off Monday and Tuesday. We are anticipating 40 hours a week when they're not preparing, or when they're preparing for these tournaments. He's also responsible for the land maintenance out there, so there is more than enough for him to do. We have one other employee assigned to that for maintenance, and so he would be a part of that maintenance crew along with setting up these tournaments and getting them ready for the weekends. And the local teams that play every night here in McAllister.
Thank you.
Councilman Stevens?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve this with one caveat, that we fund this strictly from the tourism department, please.
Is there a second? Mr. Urban, is this something that could be funded through tourism?
Yes, I believe it would.
Any further discussion?
Any problem with that, Sherry or Pete?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
All right, one last time. Any further discussion? Okay, the motion is to include this position but funded through the tourism department. Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Who was the second, sir?
Councilman Boatright.
Councilman Stevens, Boatright,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Pritchard,
No.
Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. We're on to agenda item number 4, consider an act upon authorizing the mayor to sign change order number 1 for asphalt street overlay project RFP number 2020-003 with APAC Central Incorporated.
Mayor, members of the council, Apex has started their overlay project within the city. They're currently about a third of the way completed. They had to pull off for several weeks to finish a job in Indianola. They'll be back on site, we estimate, on Monday, is what they've told us. So they're, with about 1/3 of the projects completed, they'll be here back in town getting this done. What we've done is we've identified a street in need of overlay, and it's Chickasaw between 2nd and 3rd Street. The reason that we want to focus on that is it still has a good base. It needs an overlay, and also the side parking on that also needs to be taken care of because the brick is being exposed. This is part of kind of our overall master plan for that area. It's adjacent to Arvest Park on 2nd Street. MRHC just spent a tremendous amount of money remodeling the old PSO building. They now have doctors working out of there, seeing patients down in that area. On the other end, on 3rd Street, the Million Building, MRHC has purchased that building and has a design concept for the future, for medical facilities within that. So that whole corridor down there is being renewed and rejuvenated. And what we would like to do on this contract is add $48,000 to it to do a 3-inch overlay on Chickasaw from 2nd to 3rd Street, using infrastructure funds.
Any questions? Councilman Cox?
When we set the budget several months ago, we reduced the amount of road maintenance money to increase the water.
Correct.
How does this affect that?
We're gonna be coming back to you, and we're gonna have to rearrange some of that infrastructure money, whether it's concrete panel replacement, water line replacement, sewer line replacement. We're gonna be pulling some money from different areas in order to provide this.
Did you raise your hand?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor.
Vice Mayor Brown, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. There's a list of projects, and I can't remember them all, that we selected. Now, some roads in town, and I don't have a problem with this project, by the way. Some roads in town seem like they're worse than others. Now, you might tell me again, the selection process, how we determine which roads get asphalted.
Yeah. Well, what we did is we tried to pick roads in all 6 wards so that everybody got equal amount of roads within their district. We did look at condition, but one of the larger things that we looked at was the amount of travel on those roads. If you've got a dead-end street with 3 people living on it and it's in poor condition, we're gonna look more at a collector street that hundreds of people are using on a day-to-day basis and improve that before we get into those smaller streets.
Okay.
So this would be considered an urban street with a lot of traffic on it. It drives a lot of traffic for that small little shopping center right there, and it's also a connector for all of downtown.
Okay. That's a good answer, because I've had people in my ward ask me about that.
Yes, sir.
Hope they're listening.
Well, I mean, and I don't think the general public completely understands the cost associated with these roads. Just to do a 3-inch overlay on a normal sized street, which is 27 feet back a curb for 300 feet, is about $25,000 to $30,000. That's just one block.
Pricey, yeah.
So it is extremely expensive.
And this is a wide street as well. It's more than, isn't it?
It is a very wide street with a lot of angled parking on it.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve provided the money does not come from water infrastructure.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any, pardon me, any discussion on the motion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith was the second.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Cox,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
No.
Stevens,
No.
Brown,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, yes, and the motion carries.
Mayor, if I could add one other thing, we will be bringing that funding mechanism to the next council meeting.
Okay.
Okay?
All right, we're on to agenda item number 5, consider and act upon a wellness incentive program to include a one-time payment to participating City of McAllister employees who are covered under Blue Cross Blue Shield Health Plan. Mr. Stasiak again?
Mayor, members of the council, the bulk of all of our employees except firefighters are covered under our Blue Cross and Blue Shield Health Plan for the City of McAllister. The firefighters have always had their own plan, and the city gives them the same amount as to what our plan costs us. So, and they go out and they have their own plan and everything. Blue Cross and Blue Shield has awarded the city $50,000 based on what we have paid in our premiums for a health and wellness program for the City of McAllister. Our wellness program committee has gotten together to discuss this, and we have a recommendation for you tonight. That health committee is made up of our HR department, recreation departments, parks, safety department, and administration department. So we've got a wide variety of individuals here at the city that have been looking at this. What we've seen and what we've heard over the last 8 months with the coronavirus and COVID-19 is there is a lot of mental health issues. There's a lot of depression going on. It is across the world. And I can tell you it's also here in the City of McAllister, not only to our citizens, but also to our employees. So what we want to do is we want to be able to give them some help and some education in order to be able to deal with some of the things that are going on with their personal lives, just the changes that they've had to go through. So we want to take this $50,000 and reward our employees who participate in the program by taking 4 online courses on mental health. And if they complete those 4 mental health courses on their own in a 1-month period of time, the money will be divided equally amongst all of the employees as a wellness initiative for each and every one of those employees. Mayor, I do want to change one thing, make a recommendation on a change, is this does not have the firefighters participating in this program. I think that's an injustice to those firefighters. They are a part of this city. They are a huge part of what they have done. Our police department, our 911 employees, City of McAllister employees, we do this together as one unit. We have always focused the city on treating everybody equally and fairly. And they're suffering with the same problems that all of our employees are suffering. And I think not to put them in this program would be a real injustice. So my recommendation tonight, if council approves this, is to have all of our employees, uniform, non-uniform employees, participate in this program equally.
Any questions, comments? Yeah, Councilman Smith?
Okay, it looks to me like they're in this second category. A lot of those things are not just mental health. And so I assume when you said 4 mental health deals,
Sure.
didn't mean that, because they can do smoking cessation or
Right.
stress and so on. So really,
Absolutely, yes.
the two first ones and two out of the
Correct,
6 of the others, right?
correct.
And so
We're
whoever
hop-
participates and does 4 of them, you'll split that 50,000 equally among those people that did that.
Yes, sir, we would. What that equals out to right now with the, if everybody was to complete the program, that's about $250 per employee for a wellness benefit.
Any other questions, comments? I would make the motion to include the firefighters in this. And
Second.
all right, any further discussion? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Who was the second?
Who are
Vice Mayor Brown.
Brown?
Vice Mayor Brown?
Yes.
Councilman Pritchard?
Yes.
Smith?
Yes.
Stevens?
Yes.
Cox?
Yes.
Boatright?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes, and the motion carries. We're now on to new business, any matter not known or which could not have been reasonably foreseen prior to the time of posting the agenda in accordance with section 311.9, Title 25 Oklahoma State statutes. Do we have any new business, Mr. Stasiak?
We do not, Mayor.
In that case, we will move to the city manager's report.
Mayor, members of the council, just want to bring you up on a few of the activities here at the city. The roundabout up on Washington and Fifth and Washington. Our Parks Department, along with administration, have been working with Wagner and Lynch. Wagner and Lynch, along with our Parks Department, have come up with a design for the interior of that roundabout. In the near future, you're gonna see AstroTurf in the middle of it. And as you're looking up the hill at the roundabout, on the top in 4-foot white letters is gonna be McAllister. On the bottom in 4-foot letters is gonna be Oklahoma. In the center is gonna be a concrete pad with power and water to it. And we're gonna have a buffalo in the middle of it. And then around that buffalo is gonna be shrubbery and greenery, along with, for that landscaping. One of the things that they came up with, which is a great idea, is that buffalo will be removed during the Christmas season, and a Christmas tree will be lit in the middle of that roundabout. So I'm pretty excited about that. Wagner and Lynch are donating a lot of funds and a lot of time to the city of McAllister, so that's pretty exciting to see that being put together right now. And they're close to starting that project.
Great.
Leadership Park, we're gonna be looking at hiring a contractor to do that splash pad. You know, we have a tremendous amount of talented individuals here at the city of McAllister that can do just about anything. The problem is things go wrong from time to time. And we have employees that are sick, we've had employees that are off, we have people in leadership positions that aren't here right now. And to get these projects done and to take our crews away from the normal day-to-day stuff for 3 or 4 or 5 weeks is very, very difficult to do. Leadership Park has a lot of private donations associated with it. It has also some grant money associated with it, and then also City of McAllister funds available for that Leadership Park. So our intent will be to finish that park in the spring, right after the first of the year, with contractors to get that park completed. So not only will it have a splash pad, it'll have a new basketball court floor, new playground equipment, new edging around that playground equipment. We have updated all the bathrooms at that facility and also made improvements to all the stormwater within the area. So we shouldn't see the problems that we've seen in the past.
And for those that aren't aware, Leadership Park is at B in Jefferson.
B in Jefferson,
Yeah.
yeah. It was never named before, it was just B in Jefferson. Earlier this year, council approved a salary and benefit survey to be done by the Meriwether Group. I just wanted to let you know that that salary survey, for all intents and purposes, is completed. Staff has not finished their review on it. But Ms. Meriwether, and I absolutely agree with her, will not be traveling here until most of this pandemic is behind us. So that is on hold until she's able to travel and be able to present this to you and the council. Street overlay project, I told you earlier, is about 40% complete. They'll be resuming that overlay on 10/19, which is next Monday. We've received information that Phase 2 of Highway 69, that contract has been awarded. Estimated price on that construction project on Phase 2 was $27 million. The contract has been awarded for $32 million. We should see that project start after the first of the year once we get through the Christmas season and New Year's. Streets, if you drive around town, you'll notice that we're still up on Wade Watts doing panel replacement. They're working on about 25 panels in that area, and they should be done in there. They'll go to the top of the hill, and then that section of Wade Watts is completed on all the way from the Wade Watts overpass all the way to Strong Boulevard. After that, the plan is to go over on Strong, over by the Polk area on that hill. We've got some panels, a lot of panels that are coming apart over there. Also on Wade Watts, down by the Wade Watts overpass, if you go down there, you'll see that that construction project for sidewalk is ongoing. That was something that you guys awarded 3 or 4 weeks ago, and they're doing a great job down there. It looks really good. Wanted to bring you up to speed with our rural water district rates. The consultant is finalizing his numbers. When that is completed, we will be getting together with the rural districts along with individuals from this council to sit down and start going through those numbers and start working with those individuals one-on-one. City Hall. You know, we've been working here with a skeleton crew. We sent people to the Army Reserve Center down on South Street. We sent people to the Stipe Center, sent people to the Expo. We sent people all over the city just to keep ourselves isolated from each other. So if one got sick, everybody didn't get sick. We're in the process of bringing people back to City Hall. One of the things that we found out, we talked about mental health earlier. One of the things that we have found out through all of this is we are social people, and social people need to communicate. And you can't communicate on Zoom and all the different social networks that are out there. We are going to socially distance here at the city. We're going to wear our masks just like we're supposed to. We're not going to go and visit and just chat. We're going to keep it to business. But at the end of the day, we need to talk to each other. And we need to talk to each other when we're thinking about it, not scheduled in a meeting 5 days from now. We need to act and react right now. So we're in the process of bringing people back to City Hall. CARES Act funding, we had a request out there, a final request for $122,693.21. We did get that last week, or we got it, last week. So that completes all the money available to us from the CARES Act funding. I got a lot, I'm sorry. Sales tax. You know, we've talked about how the different programs from the federal government have helped the city of McAllister by putting money in people's hands that have been laid off, people that have suffered through this whole program. Those people have gone out and spent that money, and they've kept the city of McAllister very strong. Those programs are ending. They've been ending for the last couple of months now, and we are starting to see people kind of hunker down and not spending like they have in the past. With that said, we budgeted very conservative for this year. And as we've seen additional funding, we've brought people back and we've brought benefits back. We are continuing to monitor this very carefully, but with no incentives out there, no cares, no additional money, people are going to run out of money. And we're losing jobs in our community, so we're going to continue to be very conservative. With that said, our October reimbursement is $1.17 million. Our budget was right at $1,001,000, so we're about $169,000 over budget, which is very good. But what I talked about is last month we were about $41,000 under last year. Now for October, we're $81,000 under last year. So we're starting to see people be more conservative and not spend like they have in the past. So for the year, we're still doing very, very well. We are $1,178,000 over budget. Okay, that's what's allowed us, along with the CARES money, to bring all these people back, reinstate some of the benefits associated with it. We're not back, but we're doing well, and we're continuing to watch that. With that said, use tax is $129,000 for October. Our budget is $229,000, $100,000 under budget. We anticipated more activity at the shopping center right now. We're starting to see that activity. They've brought in a lot of water pipe, a lot of sewer lines, all of the stormwater, and they're getting ready to start doing the electrical. So that number is gonna start increasing as they bring more things on site.
Year to date, we're still quite a ways ahead in that, aren't we?
Well, for the first 4 months, we are $6,000 over budget without the shopping center. So yeah, we're doing very, very well with our use tax. We are actually $174,000 over last year. So we're still doing very, very well with our use tax. And the last thing I want to bring to you tonight is Kirk and I attended the Choctaw Nation check presentation for their sales tax that they give to the communities. And this is all over the 10.5 communities. And our check for Q3 was $10,600. And as you're aware, we've been taking this money and putting it into our park system. So that's a very strong number, and we're very appreciative of everything that the Choctaw Nation is doing for us.
How does that number compare to the last 2 or 3 quarters?
They were just a little bit over 11,000 last year, so it's still staying very, very strong, very strong. And they fully funded this program, which I thought was tremendous with everything that's going on with COVID-19.
And that money comes from basically their retail sales, so it's not casino money or anything like
It
that.
is, yes, sir. Yes,
So
sir.
it's
Yeah.
kind of it's a little bit of a barometer for the economy.
It absolutely is. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Remarks and inquiries by the council. Councilman Smith, Councilman Stevens,
No, thank you.
Councilman Cox.
Yes, I have a question for city manager. You know, a couple of months ago, Infrastructure Solutions presented the plan for all the issues with the water infrastructure. And if memory serves me, that bill was gonna be somewhere around 30 million.
Correct.
Have you and the staff started working on any methods of how we're going to pay that based on our current debt load? I mean,
Absolutely. We've been working on it with John Wolf, our financial advisor. He's also the one that's helping us with the water rate study. We also need to include a sewer rate study, but right now we're focusing on water. We're also looking at the Water Resources Board and the ability to borrow that money. Right now, that money's at about 2.5%, I think is what I heard, was the last number. So yeah, if we borrow $20 million for 30 years, the interest payment on that 20 million, I think, is about $1 million a year. So we would have to increase our funding somewhere around $1 million a year, our revenue. Along with the water rate study, they're also going to be bringing us a presentation on what that would do to water rates if we were to solely use water rates to fund those mechanisms. But yes, we are looking at every avenue available to the city to bring you a presentation on what we need to do in order to put this $20 million worth of projects in place.
When do you, when do you think we could expect to see that?
We're going to see initial numbers on water rates here at the end of this week. I think they'll be ready to present to the council. I don't think we'll make the first meeting in November, not the second meeting in October. And then we'll be working on funding mechanisms also and bringing all that information to you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. So yeah, we're making great progress on it.
No. Vice Mayor Brown,
No, I'm not everything. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilman Boatright.
Yes, Pete, there was, I've had several calls, complaints about not being able to get a hold to the water department when people needed water cut off. I talked to you about one, I've talked to Tony about one, and 2 or 3 more. Or do we not have anybody in the water office that will answer the phone?
Absolutely. Councilman, to give you an idea, they work Monday through Thursday. When they come in on Monday, there might be 300 messages,
Okay,
okay? There's 2 people.
okay. That's what I was trying to figure out. I mean,
We now have 3, which is great. Okay, so we've got another one that was hired this week. They do get to them. We have people that are standing out front because there's a number that says, call this number if you need service. And a lot of times they can't get through.
Okay.
They're on the phone constantly. It's a little disturbing to hear you say that people are having their water cut off because this council has not reinstated cutoffs or late fees.
no, I didn't say cut off,
Oh, okay.
just wanting their water cut off
Oh, okay.
or the wanting
Yeah,
the water
okay.
turned on.
Leave a message, they get to them. It may
Okay.
not be exactly that day or that
Okay.
hour, but they're getting to everybody.
Okay,
I'll tell you, I'll give you a for instance. We lost all of our employees in the courts department, okay, because of COVID-19. And they were either sick or quarantined. When we sent Susan over there, I think it was 4 or 5 days after those people had gone home, she returned over 500 phone calls that were left on the machines. So that gives you an idea of the volume that happens here at City Hall. It's a tremendous amount. So that's
I'm
just-
sure it is. I don't doubt that a bit. So
Okay.
I'm just curious about our employment, people we're gonna bring back in the water office
Sure.
or even fill positions that were open, so,
We're getting there. We're getting there citywide.
okay.
Is that it? Okay. Councilman Pritchard.
No, thank you, Mayor.
Mayor's comments and committee appointments. Just want to thank all the city employees again, because this has been a trying time, moving from one place to another and trying to keep some continuity, and you guys do a great job. And I am very proud of the professionalism that you guys have maintained throughout this process. And it's, like I said, it's been a difficult time, and just my thanks go out to you. With that, we will recess the council meeting, and I would take a motion to convene as McAllister Airport Authority. The motion to include approval of minutes from September 22nd, 2020, a regular meeting of McAllister Airport Authority. Confirm action taken on city council agenda item C, 5, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith, second Vice Mayor Brown. Any discussion? Cora, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes,
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Now take a motion to convene as McAllister Public Works Authority. Motion to include approval of minutes from the September 22nd, 2020 regular meeting of McAllister Public Works Authority. Confirm action taken on agenda items C, D, 4, 5, and to adjourn. Motion, Councilman Smith, second Councilman Cox. Any discussion? Corge, you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Stevens,
No.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Mayor, I'd like to recommend a roll call.
Okay. Corge, you call the roll, please? I think we may have lost Councilman Pritchard.
Councilman Smith,
Here.
Stevens,
Here.
Cox,
Here.
Brown,
Here.
Boatright,
Here.
Pritchard,
I'll go ahead and text you, Mayor.
Okay. My understanding of the new Open Meeting Act is that we cannot go any further until we hear from Mr. Councilman Pritchard. Mr. Urban, while we're waiting for that, if we are able to go forward, our next item would be an executive session. I do know that we have at least one person here that would like to address us on concerning what's going to go on in executive session, so I'm not sure how to do that with correct parliamentary procedure.
Well, the executive session is reserved only for the members of the council and their counsel. But when you reconvene into open session, there's a consider an act item on the agenda. That would be an appropriate time to hear from someone who wants to speak concerning that item.
He's calling in right now.
Okay, so there's no way to get them on prior to going into executive session? Just so they don't have to wait, sit through it while we're upstairs?
Well, you can call the consider an act item because you're the chair. You can take items out of position. You can call that item, hear from the person before you go into executive session, then go into executive session, and then when you come back, you can recall that item.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, we have a caller on the line. Can you state your name, please?
Sorry about that.
Thank you, Councilman.
And Councilman Stevens, you're still there, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Or would you proceed with the vote?
Councilman Pritchard,
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we voting on?
We're on
When I left, we were on the.
Public Works agenda.
No.
Mayor.
Yes, and the motion carries. Our next item is executive session. I am going to move to consider and act upon employment contract of City Manager Mr. Stasiak ahead of the executive session, because I do know, Mayor Priddle, I think you would like to address us on this. Is that correct?
No, I'm okay.
Excuse me?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I will. Sorry. Thank you, Mayor and Councilman. Kevin Priddle, 314 West Jackson, here in McAllister. I find it slightly unusual, although it obviously happens when you have an election, that you all have looked at a contract literally 3 months ago, and now we're bringing it back up again. You know, we had that situation years ago when it happened time and time again. I don't think this is about his contract. I think it's about other issues. But I just wanted to tell you, there is a lot of people out there in the community that recognize that this is a difficult job to have. He has 6 bosses, and he's 1 election away from losing a job every time that it happens. And a lot of people just wanted me to come say that we were in support of Mr. Stasiak and recognize that these are not easy times, and that those times are difficult to work through, and that you all as a council do a great job in doing that. And I just wanted you to give him due consideration. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address us on this before we go into executive session? Seeing no one, I will take a motion in a second to go into executive session. Motion, Councilman Smith, second Councilman Cox. Any discussion? Excuse me, before we vote on that, let me read it. Consider an act to convene an executive session pursuant to Title 25 Oklahoma Statutes 307B1 for confidential communications between a public body and its attorney to discuss the employment, hiring, appointment, promotion, demotion, disciplining, or resignation of any individual, salaried public officer, or employee, more particularly City Manager Peter Stasiak. Any discussion on the going into executive session? Corey, would you call the roll, please?
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Cox,
Yes.
Brown,
Yes.
Boatright,
Yes.
Pritchard,
Yes.
Stevens,
Yes.
Mayor.
Yes, and we are now in executive session.
Okay, all callers will please disconnect from the